Welcome back to another episode of Ask RGD. Today, we are talking about coated guitar strings. Thank you so much for joining me on this sixth episode of Ask RGD. Seventh, something like that. I don't know. One of those anyway. Thank you very much for joining me on this latest episode of Ask RGD. If you are not familiar to Ask RGD and this is your first time here joining us, the rules here are very, very simple. You ask me a guitar or guitar gear related question and I answer it in a video. So, without further ado, let's get on to this episode's Ask RGD question. This one comes from RJ I think I'm pronouncing that screen name properly. And he says, so for the next Ask RGD, what are the benefits and disadvantages of coated guitar strings? Excellent question. And I'm going to split it up into two different categories. The first of which being and I'm not going to call out a brand name, but there is a brand of strings that makes an entire line of coated guitar strings and all kinds of neon colors and black and white and all kinds of crazy stuff. Those coated guitar strings are a little bit different from the Elixirs and clear tones and and even some of the other coated strings from from Ernie Ball and Martin and that kind of stuff. But focusing on just those neon strings, unless you like the way that those look on a guitar, and I personally do not care for it, unless you like the way that they look, that pretty much is the end of the benefits of those strings. And the reason why is because really what that is, it's a really, really thin plastic coating that they put on, that they coat those strings with. And what that means is, it causes a couple of problems. Number one, it restricts the string from resonating fully the way that it should, and essentially deadens the tone. So that's going to be the biggest downfall of those strings. The other thing that they do is, after they've been on for a little bit, that plastic coating begins to flake off and it gets everywhere and it's messy, and you're constantly wiping it off your hands because it sticks to your hands and trying to keep it off your guitar and on your clothes. I do not recommend those at all. Unless you just got to have colored guitar strings on your guitar. Save your money. Now, in reference to what I think Mr. Demad1 was asking, which is in relation to more like like Elixir guitar strings, clear tones. Martin has a line of coated guitar strings called the Lifespan. Ernie Ball has a line of coated guitar strings. I think GHS probably has. I think they've got a couple of lines, or a few different options anyway. They become a lot more popular. And it's funny that you asked me this at a time that you did, because I am normally a diehard Ernie Ball guy, and if you've watched my channel at all, I'm sure you've seen my Pile O Ernie Ball strings sitting here on the wall behind me. And to be clear, I am not an Ernie Ball endorsed artist. Those were not given to me. I bought them. That is my personal stash supply of guitar strings. So, but I am an Ernie Ball, primarily an Ernie Ball guy. I've always enjoyed Slinkies, and I keep going back to them. However, I have plenty of guitars in this room, as you are aware, and some of these guitars get played more than others. Now, the ones that don't get played, sometimes, particularly this time of year, when this room for some reason is like the most humid room in this house, and so this time of year, the humidity kind of starts going up and down, and guitars, even ones that they may have had a brand new set of strings on them 6 months ago, and I've barely played it since, and the strings, for all intents and purposes, should be fine, but the humidity can cause it to can cause them to oxidize and rust and all that kind of stuff. So I have actually decided to try using coated guitar strings on a few of those guitars just for kicks. And the best thing that I like about them so far is I've been using the Elixirs, experimenting with the Elixir Polywebs and the new OptiWeb coating that they have. The OptiWeb is the really, really, really thin coating, and for all intents and purposes, feels just like a traditional non-coated guitar string. The Polyweb, on the other hand, which is what I've always used on my acoustics, by the way. But the Polyweb coating is a much thicker coating, and in my opinion, feels really, really smooth, and they play really, really fast, and I've always liked them. On acoustic, I've never really dove into them on electric much, just because it never really made sense to me. But now I'm in a spot that it does. So I've been experimenting with those two types of coated strings here lately, and so far I really, really like them. The third and most popular coating that Elixir offers, by the way, is the Nanoweb, which is the one in the middle. But so far, I really, really like them. They sound just pretty much identical to non-coated strings. They play really, really well, and they last a really, really long time. The package on Elixir says they will last up to 3 times longer, and I don't think that's a marketing ploy. I think that is, I've gotten at least that amount of time out of a set of strings. My Yamaha acoustic, which has a set of Elixir Polyweb acoustic strings on it, that set of strings has been on that guitar for 2 years, at least, and they're just fine. So I spent, they are a little bit more expensive, the acoustic strings especially. I think I spent about $13 or so on that particular set of strings, but I've gotten a lot of life out of that. Now, in the instance of a guitar that I will pick up and play every day or even every week, there is absolutely no way whatsoever that I'm going to get 2 years out of a set of strings. It ain't happening. But if I had put a set of regular guitar strings on, non-coated guitar strings on that guitar, they would have been toast a year and a half ago easy. Going off of that 2-year timeline. So I really, really like coated guitar strings for various different purposes. Like I said, they last longer. They play very, very fast, very easy to play. They sound great, and really the only thing not to like about it would be the price tag, because they do cost about twice as much as a non-coated guitar string. A set of Ernie Ball hybrid slinkies, which is my go-to set of guitar strings, those are going to cost somewhere in the ballpark between $4 and $5 a set, give or take. A set of Elixir Polywebs on the same gauge for electric is going to cost around $10, 10 or 11. Again, kind of depending on where you're buying them and whether or not you're getting them on sale. So, going to pay twice the price, but again, in my experience, you're going to get 3 times the life. So, it's more money up front, but it's, in my estimation, going to be more savings in the long run. So, take that into consideration and do what you will. And I've tried several of them. I've tried, of course, the Elixirs. I've tried the clear tones, which are also great. Their coating is a little bit different technology. They call them treated strings rather than coated strings, but so their technology is a little bit different, but it's kind of gets it's a different route to the same to the same destination. As I mentioned, Ernie Ball has a line of coated strings. Martin has a line of coated strings for acoustic. There's lots of different options out there. So if you've never tried coated strings before, I certainly, absolutely encourage you to do so. One final test, just so that we can hear the difference. I'm going to play a guitar with coated strings on it. I'm going to use my trusty Charvel, which is loaded with EMG 8185s. I am going to also follow that with my Les Paul Vertigo Zakk Wylde guitar that also has the exact same set of active pickups in it. Because that's, for this experiment, as close as I can get, but the Les Paul has non-coated strings on it, so see if we can hear much of a difference, as best we can anyway. Thank you very much, Mr. RJ the Mad One, for submitting your question for Ask RGD. You too can ask a question to RGD. All you have to do is ask your question either down in the comments section. You can send me an email. You can send me a Facebook message, or you can even use the contact form on the website. All of those methods of communication are linked up down in the description below. As a disclaimer, if you do submit your question in the form of a comment, I will mention who you are publicly. If you choose one of those other methods, I will assume that you would rather remain anonymous, and I will leave your identity out of it. Links to all the gear and anything else pertinent will be down in the description as well. Please hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.